Hi, I'm Gary Null. I'd like to welcome you once again to our Classroom on the Air. The theme today, do you want to get off the disinformation grid? Do you want to do something that's empowering? Or do you want to kind of be indifferent, see things going on and say, it doesn't impact me, why should I care? It's not my house is burning down, it's not my house being destroyed. Okay, that could be true, but should you care? For example, if I ask you, do you care about women's rights, children's rights? Do you care about animal rights? Do you care about quality of life or just a standard of living? Do you care about whether or not people have given you misinformation, disinformation, biased information, prejudiced information? And what if you don't care and therefore you make your decisions based upon the wrong information? What is the outcome? It's never good. And we have a unique phenomenon today. Every generation throughout history believes that it is better able to understand the world because it's a newer generation, frequently completely dismissing the insights, the knowledge, the direction, the guidance, the standards, whether it's morality, ethics, of previous generations. Oh, they're old. What do they know? They've had their day. Now it's our time. What do we do with that? For example, think of the Grammys. Does that show the best of those who have been given the benefit and the privilege of success? Or does it show just wanton gluttony of media attention, seeing how exhibitionist they can be, showing the depravity? There's something called a hedonic curve. Hedonic comes from hedonism, and at its very basic, and it means pleasure. And we all seek pleasure. And there's, at the low end of the scale, clear down here, pleasure is having a wonderful meal, being able to be with someone you really care about, a friend or family or essential other. Doing something gives you great pleasure. For example, I'm sure many of you like going to a concert, or going to an opera, or going to a ballet, or going to a wonderful movie where you come out and it inspired you in some way, or going to a lecture where someone was sharing insights and the energy to motivate you to think deeper. Who would have thought that a University of Toronto psychologist, Jordan Peterson, talking about just kind of mundane things like making your bed and making it with the intent of really making it well, and then following that throughout the day, being conscious of the choices you make and that would make you a better human being. But all over the world, millions upon millions of mainly young men have found him to be an extremely important resource to better guide them. He becomes a tool for the kind of fulfillment of thought. You may never have heard of the concept of fulfillment of thought. It's something I coined about 20 years ago. It means, am I vacuous? Am I just in information overload with thousands of messages and images and coming in every day? 56,000 more or less thoughts we have each day, some short, some long, but never really being able to pull them all together to coalesce a thought into something that is structured and then put discipline and focus behind it to make it go forward. So there's a good outcome. That fills the void in our conscious mind. We have a lot of information and very little intellect. We have a lot of experience, but very little understanding of the experience in our growth process. We're just going through passages. And sometimes we don't like the passage we're in. We want to stay in the last passage. The last passage, I didn't have a lot of responsibility. I wasn't expected to do anything because I was young and kind of naive, didn't know what to do. I relied upon others. I relied upon the experts. I'm not an expert. So why should I be responsible for doing anything? If I eat bad food, well, I didn't grow it. I didn't process it. I didn't advertise it on television. And what am I supposed to do? Everyone's saying the same advertising on television. It tells us, eat this, eat all of it, eat this humongous amount of food right now, today, and then get hungry again and do it again. And when the food ends up causing gastric distress, take an antacid. It stopped the digestion. I'll be overhead and undernourished, but who cares? For years, everyone watched porn, not everyone, but most people. That was the number one use of the internet. Now we have all kinds of porn, not necessarily sexual porn. We have political porn. We have theatrical porn. The Grammys was just one example of that, going to extremes. But was it something original and beautiful and inspiring that we could think about, talk about, and incorporate into our consciousness? No, it was just decadency. It was decadency from going from simple pleasures. One of my simple pleasures every morning is taking my two little dogs, a puppy and a 2-year-old, out into a large 12-acre field where they can run, play, and smell all the flowers and pick things up and carry them around like a feather. They're finding joy in the moment. There's an innocence to that. And I just smile and laugh nonstop. I find such pleasure in that. The pleasure in watching a sunset, because down here in Florida, the sunsets are just spectacular, as are the sunrises. Being able to sit with a friend and have a wonderful conversation, eye to eye, that's pleasurable. Being able to go out and shoot basketball, pleasurable. So you see, the simple things in life can also fulfill our hedonic needs, the need for pleasure. But what happens when you become successful and you're expected to engage in a more decadent form of pleasure? You're told this is what everyone does. And doesn't everyone do this who becomes successful? Movie star who's expected to wear the very expensive gown and walk the red carpet and chatter in nonsensical ways about nothing relevant about the film. And then we somehow think that that's important for us. It's not. Or how about the rapper that gets up and like Mr. West, when he took the microphone up on stage when it was not his choice of who won the award, and starts talking about, well, Beyonce should have won this. Remember that? An embarrassing moment. It was Taylor Swift who actually came up. She didn't quite know what to say. Now compare that to when Will Smith got up. He was laughing at the joke made, simple joke, about, and it wasn't about his wife, it was about alopecia, comparing her old head with Demi Moore and her G.I. Jane or whatever the movie was. He laughed. He looked at her. She was frowning. He got up, walked up there and smacked and walked back. Now, what's that have in common? What did Kanye West and taking a microphone and saying, well, this woman isn't the real winner. My friend there is the real winner. And nothing happened. He wasn't shown out the door, nor was Will Smith. He assaulted a person. What do you think would happen if you and I walked into a synagogue, a mosque, a church, cathedral, walked up, got up out of our seat and walked up on stage at a ballet and smacked the person in the face? Well, immediately we would be arrested and put in jail. What do these two things have in common? And they have something in common. And everything that you saw in an embarrassing display of narcissism, ego, but most importantly, it was way up on the scale of pleasure. It was pure hedonism, ultimate decadency, that I can do anything, including violence, and you will accept it. Because Will Smith would have never smacked someone in front of a worldwide audience outside of what he knew was acceptable. And indeed, it was acceptable. Didn't everyone get up and applaud him when he won the Oscar just a few minutes later? Yes. Did anyone boo him? No. Did the police arrive? No. No, because when you are in the public eye as a celebrity, you can do anything because you have millions of followers. Or the Kardashians have hundreds of millions of followers and are billionaires. For what? Making a porn tape? Yes. Any quality in there? No. I see. So you can do whatever you want. You can talk about the environment and yet fly on private planes. Yes. You can talk about human rights, but then support the United States in its war in Yemen, where the average citizen is starving to death and children are abused, or wear clothes, including designer clothes, that could have been made by slave labor in Bangladesh, women working for 14 to 28 cents an hour, and yet call yourself for women. Which women are you for, by the way? Say that you appreciate people. When? Like the politicians that kiss the babies and go around and eat the stupid food when they want to get elected, but otherwise live in enclaves, cultural enclaves, political enclaves, financial enclaves. When was the last time you saw anyone in power? I'm talking about anyone in power actually acknowledged that what they were doing, what they were saying, what they were believing was wrong. How about never? If you're forced by threat of arrest or being arrested to apologize, it's too late. So why do I mention all this? Because Will Smith is still fully accepted by his community because that's who they are. They've morphed in this collective acceptance of anything decadent, anything violent, as long as it's within them. Because he should have been arrested. He should never be allowed in the movies again, and yet people will still go to his movies. What does that say about them? So you mean you can create an egregious act of violence and do so with this intemperance that I'm allowed to do so. I'm allowed to smack you because I'm famous, but you're not allowed to smack me. You're not even allowed, if you work on a set with me, to look in my eyes. Can't look in my eyes. To Jennifer Lopez and other actors and actresses and television hosts. Yeah. When was the last time you saw someone who was very successful say, you know something? I'm not going to change how I live. I don't need to live in a gated community in a multi-million-dollar house. I don't need to drive a Lamborghini. I don't need to have $20,000 dresses or suits. I don't need to go on a high-end yacht that is costing more than what a person would make in a year. I don't need any of this. I'm just going to hang out with the people I've always hung out with. I'm going to take my success, go back to college. I'm going to get the education I never had. Because did you notice something about all famous people, nearly? They stop growing on every level when they are suddenly acknowledged. Now, every moment of every day is simply trying to prove I deserve to be number one. I deserve it. You see the same people winning the awards all the time? You don't think that's a closed circle system? When you get nominated for Academy Award, and I've had films that were sent in for nomination to the Academy Awards, do you think that all it takes is the integrity and quality of your performance or your film or your artwork to get acknowledged? No. There's $1 million campaigns, $1 million campaigns to get you nominated and then to get you to win it. It's a bought and paid for system. It's utterly corrupt top to bottom, as are all these. Otherwise, we would see people who are not famous winning. And then the decadency that we see, the extremes that people go to keep our attention. Why did Lady Gaga have to wear an animal suit? Did she care about the animals who were killed to make that outfit that she wore? No. Now, why do I say all this? Because these are people who are not going to change the world for the better on any level at any time in their life. And all that we see now is that they get older, they will become less relevant and more desperate to stay relevant. We just live normal lives. We go through our passages, realizing that each passage has a different purpose for us. When we're younger in life, we're trying to prove that we deserve to be hired, deserve to stay in a job, deserve to have a family and stay in a relationship. We are trying to prove ourselves till about the age of 35. Then we finally have accepted that, okay, this is where I'm at. And then we spend the next 5 to 10 years indulging ourselves in things that we had sacrificed earlier, and now we want. And then, of course, with that comes all the debt and all the responsibilities too many responsibilities, too much debt, too much stress, and then everything we once valued starts to crumble because it's neglected. Anything you do not give energy to and becomes neglected, your health, your spiritual values, your intellect, capacity for critical thinking, your desire to seek the truth, even though it's not apparent, those all diminish. And your life becomes smaller until one day you wake up and you're suffering from the angst of the big empty, I call it, where there's nothing there because you didn't pay attention to what was most important. You mastered your job, but not your life. Now, why is this important? Because there's still something you can do. And why do I say there's something you can do? In a good way, positive way. Because just be honest. For goodness sake, why can't people ever be honest about anything? Because they would have to look in the mirror and have to get right up close, and the image coming back, they're not going to like. I don't care how you Photoshop what you think you are, you're going to be judged by what you do. And who's doing anything in the environment? Almost nobody. But we all want a safe environment. We all want to live a longer life. We all want happiness. What are we doing to manifest it? Expecting it to be a service that's given to us for a price? Someone out there, we become a spectator to life. We're no longer actively participating. So here's what we can do. We can get off their grid. We can become the architect of our life, but you cannot do it unless you make some changes. And this is where it gets rough. Almost impossible. I doubt more than 1% of the people who are watching right now will end up making these changes. 1, don't vote for any of the parties because they're all corrupt, but support new parties, populist parties, parties that really care about the people and take back the power. Remember, in a republic, the republic are people. Therefore, everything is supposed to benefit the people. In a democracy, you've given away all of your rights to a group that has been paid for. They've been selected before they were elected, and they're making decisions for you. When was the last time any of these fools made any suggestions that put anything into place? They're spending billions of dollars, but any of it helping you? Well, let's just see. No, nothing's helping you. No, unless you're a rich corporate stakeholder in the World Economic Forum, then yes, everything is there to help you, but not the average person. If you think they really care about your health, why is it that the second leading cause of bankruptcy is medical bills that you can't pay, charging outrageous amount of money and exploiting because no one's willing to change it because they're all getting money. They're all getting lobby money paid. So we'll keep those drugs high. We'll keep the hospital stays high. You can spend a night in one of New York's most luxurious high-end hotels for less than what it costs to spend a night with no medication in a hospital bed. How'd that happen? Greed. People who stopped their growth when they got rich, stop expanding their consciousness, stop caring, except for themselves. And now we become very much a narcissistic society at the high end, caring only about ourselves and caring nothing about anyone else. So get off their grid. Can you do the following? Can you? Can you stop reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, the Miami Herald, all the major media? Can you stop? Because it's all controlled and you have more than enough evidence to see that. Can you stop voting for these dancing clowns, fools, who promise in a vacuous way because they never deliver? Can you stop supporting the war in Ukraine, which we created in order to destabilize Russia and take over Russia and exploit its assets, as we've done in multiple countries throughout the last 70 years? Can you turn off the mindless television shows, the reality shows that only show the worst of human nature, the most decadent, vile, emotionally unstable, and spiritually devoid programs? How many train wrecks can you pull up a chair, get some popcorn, and watch before you've said, been there, done that? It's all the same outcome. The screaming, the cursing. Is that supposed to show us how people are reacting? Did you react that way growing up? Is that how you act now? If that's the way you're acting now, you shouldn't be watching me, because I'm promoting the antithesis of everything we can now consider normal. Obesity is not normal. Being overweight is not normal. And yet we've made it normal. Therefore, why should anyone change? Everyone else is overweight. Everyone else is angry. Everyone else is judgmental. We don't wait to see whether you're guilty. We make you guilty. If you've done nothing wrong, if you haven't applied yourself to our principles, you're wrong. Therefore, have to be erased and destroyed, no matter what your legacy, no matter what you've done, because we, the judges, have done nothing, zero, nothing to make it a better world for anyone. Selfish, narcissistic, spiteful, condescending, self-aggrandizing, vacuous intellect, pure, raw, naked emotion, who feels there is no judgment for punishing people for what we don't like. Are you willing to stay open and not censor other ideas? Stay neutral to see whether or not any of what is said or offered makes sense? Are you willing to say no to government mandates, no to the media mandates, no to the celebrity mandates? They're vacuous idiots. Are you willing not to buy the electric cars until you do your homework, as I have, and seen how much energy it took to mine all that? I showed a clip on my daily noon show on PRN.Live. And it was one gentleman who was able to get into one of the in the areas where they mine for cobalt that goes into your cell phone and the batteries in electric vehicles. Now, if you contacted the company, they would tell you, oh, no, we use equipment and no one's exploited. Okay, good. I can believe you. I can believe you. Can I believe you? Should I believe you? Your answer is believe no one about anything. Prove it first. Prove through the individual actions that a person deserves in your life, deserves in your mind. Because if you don't have that barrier, everyone who thinks they can exploit you is going to. So this man went to Africa, I believe it was in the Congo, and lo and behold, in one mine, and there's a lot of these, there were 15,000 individuals, all mining with their hands and shovels, young kids, 6, 5 years old, carrying bags of rocks, killing them so that they could make enough money to buy food that day so you can have your electric vehicle. Didn't see any of that in the ads for electric vehicles, and causing more pollution to the environment than what will be saved and trapped with the electrical vehicle. Same as solar, same as wind. We never look at the full picture. We only look at that small part of the picture where someone makes a promise and we say, yeah, that's good. Now, is it because we can't find the truth? We can all find the truth. If I can find the truth, you can. And millions upon millions of Americans, tens of millions, have found the truth, and they're already off the grid. So I don't buy their products. I don't have the latest electronic gadgets. I will not allow myself to be chipped. I will not allow myself to have a vaccine card or any other way of identifying who I am and tracking me, which the CDC has now been shown to have been doing for everyone. I will not believe anything anyone in power says until I first independently validate that it's true. I will not eat their foods because that leads to disease, no health. I will not watch their shows. It leads to the debasement of everything I consider a value as a human being and respect another human being. I will not eat meat because the animals are sentient unless you're willing to eat your cat and dog. If you're not willing to boil up your cat and dog, first kill them, boil them, then eat them, then think about how conditioned you are to believe it's completely normal to eat that sentient being in a fried a deep fryer coming out in a fast food restaurant, that and the disease that comes with it. They want to digitize your currency. They don't want you to be able to have access to any cash. After that, it'll be gold and silver. So they'll be able to control every purchase you make. It'll be based upon a credit score. What books have you read? What have you believed? What have you followed? If it's not in alignment with their needs, you won't be able to pay your bills. They already did this in Canada. Get off their grid. Until such time that they have universal health care, understand that the entire medical industrial complex is not there to save you, prevent disease. It's there to make money, plain and simple. If you should be helped in the process, good. But how about the number one cause of death and illness in the United States every year? Injury is iatrogenesis, medically induced. You never hear that, do you? The AMA says number 3, third killer in the United States, behind heart attack, stroke, and cancer. No, it's number 1. They left out certain figures like people who end up with ulcers and gangrene and die of infections in the hospital. They left that out. Malnutrition in hospitals and death, they left that out. You start adding up all the things that people die from or injured from. Wow. I just acted as a patient advocate for someone I know who had acute kidney failure. They were on 3 blood pressure lowering medications. Not a single word about how diet and lifestyle, reducing sodium in the diet, increasing potassium, could have brought the blood pressure down to normal. As a result, 2 of the 3 medications, the side effects were acute renal failure. The patient was never told they had acute renal failure. The doctor forgot. The doctor didn't know that the side effects of the medications to lower blood pressure was killing the person with acute renal failure. Had I not interceded, within a week or 2, the person would have been on dialysis, then dead. The doctor said, well, sorry, I missed that. Oh, you missed talking about lifestyle modification and you missed looking up the drug side effects? And that happens all the time, constantly, every day. But we don't talk about it because the doctor and medicine is successful. The rich are powerful. They pay for the image they have, but they don't pay for the flowers and the toe tag you get if they fail. And they fail a lot. So stop trusting authorities until you can independently prove that the advice they're giving you is good advice. Don't buy what you don't need. Look at how much stuff you've got in your life you don't need. And yet look at the money you spent. Look at the debt you incurred. Look at the lack of proper savings you could have had if you would have saved instead of spent. Who are you trying to impress? What void is that trying to fulfill? So get off their grid. Support those groups that want to take all money out of politics. So you can't spend a penny, or anyone else can spend a penny to get you elected. Then you would have the non-psychopaths running for office, those who had not been selected and groomed, and then $1 billion spent to get them elected presidents. Look at all the presidents we've had. Wow. What dysfunctional people with no spiritual values. And yet we elected them. Spiritual people, we don't elect anything. They scare us. So, what are you going to do for the environment? You're going to go meatless? Good. You're going to buy locally, organically grown produce? Good. You're going to buy food that you're going to eat instead of buying too much and wasting it? Good. Are you going to get with a group of people in the local high school and chamber of commerce and local mayor and say, hey, let's start planting 1 million trees? That's really good. That'll trap carbon. Or do you need a car for every person in the family? Do you need all the gadgets you have? No, you don't. You want to give them up? Hope so. Can you turn off the computer and leave it off? Can you stop looking at all the likes and everything else that's irrelevant to anything in life except vacuous minds that need it? Can you? If you do that, that's really good. Are you going to take your money out of their banks, tear up their credit cards, and put your money into credit unions, ones that do not make loans to major corporations to try to make more money, but rather that they're there to protect your money so they have your money safe? Can you do that? Sure you can. Can you become aware of how to clean up your community? Support local community gardens. Start to teach classes that otherwise are not being taught, like on social integration, bringing people together, sharing the uniqueness of our diversities, showing respect for other people's qualities of life and experiences. That's getting off their grid. Because right now, all we're taught in the media is hate your neighbor, fear them. We've balkanized our entire society. Can you challenge the budget, the military-industrial complex, taking 800 billion plus non-accountable instead of helping those who need it, bringing jobs back to America, building businesses, supporting local small businesses throughout the United States and every community so people can have a quality of life and bring back what we once had in abundance, a thriving middle class? Can you do that? Can you stay away from going into a box store? Stay away from the Walmarts. Because when a Walmart opens up, all the small quality businesses that have been there for decades go out of business. Can you stop shopping in Whole Foods? Instead, find the small food co-op or the health food store to support. Can you do that? If you turn off their television and don't watch their programs, if you turn off all these award shows, which are an embarrassment of excess and narcissism, if you start spending more time helping people, spending time in soup kitchens or with groups that are helping the homeless children, that's a good thing. Get off their grid, right? Don't have their tracking devices in your cars. Remember that little gizmo you have in the house that, Alexa, tell me, that's recording everything going on and feeding it back. Your television, take your finger across and see if you feel a little indentation. That's a camera recording you. You mind? You should. I have nothing, to fear. That's a bad excuse because they don't want you being independent. They don't want you going off their grid. So stop using their bank, stop eating their food, stop buying their clothes, stop watching their programs. Become independent thinking, and you'll find hundreds of millions of other people in this world who support you, but they're the silent ones. They don't draw attention to themselves. They're not exhibitionists. When was the last time you saw one of these shows where people were not exhibitionists? The fact that a group of people can spend thousands of dollars and all about, oh, how much did you spend on that gown? And look at the car you drove up in and look how much bling you got on. Those are very insecure people. When was the last time they helped society? They don't. Everything's about themselves. They are the grid. Get off of it, if you can. I'm Gary Null. If you found anything of value in what I said, good. If not, well, tomorrow I'll be back to share more. Don't forget, every day on PRN.Live, the #1 progressive radio program in America, on the #1 progressive radio station in America, serving people all over the world. We're heard worldwide. In fact, we're one of the leading voices worldwide, according to Zeno Radio. Right? Become informed. Go to GaryNull.com. Download the articles. I've written almost 1,000 articles, over 100 documentaries, over 100 books, 50,000 hours of broadcasting. Lots of information there. All meant to empower you. So when you exercise your freedom of choice, you're having a choice based upon knowing what the consequences are to the right choice and the wrong choice. Have a nice day.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.